Shohei Ohtani extended his on-base streak to 50 games. But that's not the moment people will remember from that day. Because before the game even started, before a single pitch was thrown, something happened that reframed everything we think we know about impact, pressure, and what it means to perform on a stage like this. A 100-year-old woman, a survivor of one of the darkest moments in human history, came to watch him play. And for a brief moment, baseball wasn't just a game, it became something much bigger. The Dodgers came into Coors Field focused on business, another game, another opportunity to extend a strong start to the season. Ohtani, already carrying one of the longest on-base streaks in baseball, was expected to do what he's been doing: reach base, control the game, maintain consistency. But before all of that, he met Momoyo Nakamoto Kelly, a survivor of the Nagasaki bombing in 1945, a woman who had lived through something almost impossible to comprehend, and still, at 100 years old, made the trip just to see Ohtani play. That moment matters more than it seems, because it introduces a layer of pressure that doesn't show up in stats. The obvious narrative is simple. Ohtani meets a fan, signs a ball, takes a picture, a touching human interest moment before the game. Then he goes out, extends his streak, and continues his historic run. That's the surface level story. And it's meaningful, but it doesn't capture the full weight of what that interaction represents, because when a player like Ohtani is described as the pride of Japan, that's not just praise, it's expectation, it's identity, it's responsibility carried into every at-bat. And on this day, that responsibility became tangible, not abstract, not symbolic, real, standing right in front of him. Here's where it gets deeper. Baseball players are trained to isolate performance from emotion, routine, focus, repeatability. That's how you sustain something like a 50-game on-base streak. But moments like this disrupt that structure. They force awareness. They pull you out of the narrow tunnel of competition and remind you that what you're doing is being seen, felt by people with stories far bigger than the game itself. That can do one of two things. It can elevate focus, or it can create weight. And for Ohtani, you could see that tension play out, not in his demeanor, but in his timing at the plate. Because this wasn't a clean extension of the streak. It was a struggle. He didn't reach base early. He didn't settle into rhythm. He grounded out, flied out. The timing wasn't fully there. And that's important because it tells you something shifted, even slightly. Here's the hidden factor. The pressure in this game wasn't competitive. It was personal. Ohtani wasn't just maintaining a streak. He was performing in front of someone who viewed him as something larger than an athlete. And that changes how moments feel. It slows things down internally, even if externally the game moves at the same pace. That's why the turning point comes in the ninth inning. 2 outs. Last chance to extend the streak. This is where streaks usually break, not because of failure, but because of accumulation. Too many small misses. Too much pressure building quietly over multiple at-bats. And in that moment, everything narrows. No margin left, no room for adjustment over time. Just one opportunity. And Ohtani delivers. A 2-out single. That's not dominance. That's precision under compression. Because the difference between extending the streak and ending it came down to one swing, one pitch, one decision. That's the margin he's operating within. Now zoom out. 50 consecutive games reaching base ties him with some of the most consistent hitters in Dodgers history. Only Shawn Green and Duke Snider have gone longer for the franchise. The all-time record, 84 games by Ted Williams, still sits far ahead. But that's not the immediate story. The real takeaway is how this streak is being sustained, not through explosive nights, but through refusal to disappear, even on a day where timing isn't perfect. Even after an emotionally heavy pregame moment, even when the game doesn't come easily, he still finds a way to reach base. That's not just skill, that's control of process under variable conditions. For the Dodgers, this kind of consistency is stabilizing. Even in a loss, a 4-3 feat that breaks momentum, they still get baseline production from their most important player. That reduces volatility across the lineup. It keeps pressure on opposing pitchers. It shortens slumps before they begin. But for Ohtani, this game represents something different. It's a reminder that his role extends beyond performance. He's not just producing results, he's carrying meaning. And that meaning isn't always neutral. Sometimes it adds weight, sometimes it disrupts rhythm, Sometimes it forces him to operate outside the clean, controlled environment that elite performance usually requires. And yet, he still delivers. Not perfectly, not smoothly, but effectively. In the end, the most important moment from this game didn't happen in the ninth inning. It happened before the first pitch, because it showed something we don't often see from Ohtani. Not power, not precision, but connection. And that connection didn't make the game easier. If anything, it made it harder, which is exactly why what followed matters. Because even when the moment became bigger than baseball, he still found a way to stay inside it just long enough to succeed. He almost didn't get on base, and for a moment, the streak looked like it might finally break. 50 games on the line, 2 outs in the ninth, everything hanging by a thread. Then Shohei Ohtani flicked a single into the outfield and kept it alive. But that wasn't the moment people will remember. Not even close. Because before the game even started, something bigger happened. Something that had nothing to do with streaks, stats, or wins. At Coors Field, Ohtani noticed a woman watching from a wheelchair, 100 years old, her name Momoyo Nakamoto Kelly. And her story? It changes everything. She survived the atomic bombing of Nagasaki in 1945, 19 years old at the time, a moment that defined her life and nearly ended it. Decades later, she's in Denver watching baseball, watching him. That's the hook, because to her, Ohtani isn't just a player, he's the pride of Japan. Someone she watches every day, every game. So when Ohtani walked over, it wasn't routine. It was personal. He signed a baseball, took a photo, shared a moment that didn't need words. And just like that, the game shifted. Not on the scoreboard, but in meaning. That's the tension. Because hours later, the Dodgers would lose 4-3 to the Colorado Rockies, and Ohtani would struggle all night, failing to reach base until that final swing in the ninth. Errors didn't count. Outs piled up. The streak was slipping, but he found a way. Again, 50 straight games reaching base. That ties him with Willie Keeler for one of the longest runs in Dodgers history. Only Shawn Green and Duke Snider stand ahead. That's elite company. But here's the turning point. None of that felt like the main story. Not after what happened before first pitch, because in a sport built on numbers, this was something else. Perspective. Ohtani plays under pressure every night. Expectations, records, championships. But standing next to someone who lived through one of the darkest moments in history, that resets everything. And you could feel it ripple through the stadium. Even players felt it. Roki Sasaki, Tomoyuki Sugano, they met her too, heard her story, understood the weight of it. That's the impact, because baseball can feel huge until it doesn't. Until a moment like this reminds everyone what actually lasts. For Ohtani, the streak continues. The chase goes on, records, history, numbers. But this is different. One meeting, one story. One reminder that even the biggest moments in baseball aren't always the ones that happen on the field. And somehow, on a night where everything nearly slipped away, Shohei Ohtani delivered something bigger than a hit.